Greetings, awesome action heroes. My name is Anto, and I recently played Dimension 20's new system, Never Stop Blowing Up.
Never stop blowing up.
And in today's video, I want to tell you about the system, walk you through my initial thoughts on it, and talk about my experience running a one-shot for my regular D&D group. This video is sponsored by Legend Keeper, more on them later. So, Never Stop Blowing Up is a 4-page rules-light TTRPG from the folks at Dimension 20 and is based on the Kids on Bike system. The mechanics. The system itself is wonderfully simple. Your character has 9 key skills and each of them starts at a D4. As you play the game, anytime you roll the highest number on your dice, you blow up and graduate to the next die size, moving up from D4 all the way up to D20. This is the perfect system for those fighter and barbarian players who love rolling big numbers and seeing their big numbers go up. And it is possible to blow up several times in a row, which is an awesome feeling when it happens. Because of this, the system really incentivizes an over-the-top, ridiculous world where the players should be trying to do things that a normal human being just should not be capable of doing.
And slams your son into your head. He's gonna kill you with your son.
If you think about the most bombastic 80s action movies that you've ever seen, you'll have a great frame of reference for the kind of things that your awesome action heroes will be doing in Never Stop Blowing Up. I'm talking blocking machine gun fire with a katana, leaping from a 100-story building without wires and landing in a 20-foot swimming pool, or driving a Humvee out of an exploding plane and just happening to find a parachute on the back seat. All of these things are things that happened in my one shot. In addition to your key skills, you also have abilities that allow you to do things like adjust the DCs for different checks, use your abilities in different ways, and spend your turbo tokens in cool ways. And it's the turbo token system where Never Stop Blowing Up really shines. This is based on the adversity token system in Kids on Bikes, as well as similar ideas in a lot of other systems, but the premise is that anytime you fail a roll in Never Stop Blowing Up, you gain a turbo token, which can be spent to increase your dice results to do other cool things on future rolls. This rewarding a failure is a really interesting element of game design because systems that use it almost always incentivize the players to try cooler stuff, knowing that even if they fail, they are still rewarded with something. This is in stark contrast to a lot of D20 fantasy systems, where if you aren't doing the most optimal thing, which is usually just a regular attack, you won't bother trying to do something else or something cool because the benefits don't outweigh the risks of not attacking that turn. But in a system like Never Stop Blowing Up, where you gain tokens for failure, you are always going to get something for trying to do something interesting. And not just that, but as the game goes on, there's actually an incentive to try and do things using your weaker skills because they use smaller dice and therefore have a higher chance of landing on the highest result, blowing up, and therefore you're still likely to get a turbo token even if you fail, but you might be able to blow up some of your skills in the process. Never Stop Blowing Up also has group abilities which allow the players to interact with each other mechanically, and I always enjoy seeing mechanics that encourage this style of gameplay, though I do wish more of the group abilities were things that actually prompted interaction between the players, as a lot of them seem to just impact one player at a time. A quick interlude here to say that the language of the rules isn't super clear in the group ability section. It's not obvious whether only one character gets a group ability or the whole party, or whether the individual and group referenced in the intro paragraph are individual abilities and group abilities, or individual players and the whole player group. While only 4 pages, the rules could definitely benefit from another edit pass to add some better clarifying language throughout. I do have to say I found it really disappointing that there are no credits in the system PDF. I have no idea who actually wrote this system, whether it was Brennan or someone else, who did the graphics, the layout, or the art, and honestly, that's pretty disappointing for Dropout. Not a huge deal, but given that Dropout is usually so great, I did want to mention it here. Now, before we get into what I got up to in my one shot, let's talk about today's sponsor. I do a lot of world building here on the channel, which is why I'm so pleased that today's video is sponsored by Legend Keeper. For years now, Legend Keeper has been my go-to world building tool. It's what I've used to build out my homebrew world, and I've been using it to run my weekly campaign for the last 4 years, keeping all of my session notes, my player notes, and my world notes within Legend Keeper. The thing that I love most about Legend Keeper is that it just gets out of my way and lets me world build. There are no predetermined templates. It doesn't give me 1,000 prompts every time I want to do something. I can just create a new page and dive right into the act of creation. When I do want some structure though, there's a template system that allows me to set any page I've made as a template so I can use it over and over again. The main draw of Legend Keeper for me though is the atlas. Here you can upload a map and cover it in pins, which are linked to articles containing details about your world. You can change the color, the shape, the size of the pins to make finding information easier, especially especially when you have over 600 of them on a single map like I do. And not just that, but you can nest maps infinitely. You can have a map of your entire cosmos with a pin to your world, go down to the world level map, and then to your campaign region, and then open up the map to their starting town, and then even open up a map of the local tavern. Legend Keeper also has boards, which are like interactive whiteboards where you can plot ideas or story beats, or even make a digital GM screen with clickable elements containing all the information that you need. When it comes time to share your world, you can invite your players to edit the world as collaborators, or just send them a link for them to view the public elements of the world like a wiki with no account needed. If you want to check out everything Legend Keeper has to offer, you can use my link in the description below and get a 14-day free trial. And when you're ready, use the code LKEXPLODE to get 20% off your first payment, including annual plans. Thanks again to Legend Keeper for supporting the channel, but for now, back to the video. My session. So I ran a one-shot of Never Stop Blowing Up recently. My group and I usually play D&D, and I've just instituted a new rule that when we're missing 2 people or would otherwise need to cancel or do like a beach episode, I'm going to be running a new one-shot in a different system instead. My players, for the most part, are pretty system ambivalent. They're happy playing D&D or really any system I'm running, but they rarely express any desire to play other systems themselves. So I knew that if I wanted to play through the backlog of games that I want to get through this century, I needed to drag them along. Now, after watching the Never Stop Blowing Up Dimension 20 series, I knew that this was my preference for a one-shot, but I gave them a couple options, including Shadow Dark and Monster of the Week, and we ended up with an even split, so I was the tiebreaker and decided on Never Stop Blowing Up. Now, my approach to running one-shots in new systems is I want the players to do as little work as possible before we start, preferring to use pre-gen characters where possible. Ideally, I would also like the GM to do as little work as possible, but Never Stop Blowing Up is about as bare bones as it's possible to get. You don't even get character sheets, so I had to make some character sheets and partially fill them in for my players. Knowing that this was a one-shot, I made the choice to start each character off with a couple of skills at D6 instead of D4 to give us a better chance of hitting the D20 and the bonkers level of play within the time that we had. I gave each of the players 2 abilities and 1 group ability instead of the usual 3 abilities to encourage some more of that inter-party play. And then for the setup, I took the core premise of the D20 show that the characters are playing as teens who are sucked into a magic VHS, Jumanji style, where they become their awesome action hero personas, and I made a version of that. Now, it was a lot of fun watching the players come up with their teens and their action heroes, and I devoted most of my prep time to setting up their initial scenes where they get into the world of Never Stop Blowing Up, as well as building out a playlist of 80s action music. Because this system really encourages the players to do just bonkers stuff, it's almost impossible to prepare maps of any kind, or really any kind of ETT resource to play Never Stop Blowing Up. So instead, I grabbed a bunch of pictures of different locations in and around LA, which is where our session was set, and I put these as scenes within Foundry. Then I made a whole bunch of music playlists and used music to drive the tone of the game. I made custom playlists for each character's introduction scene, which matched either the character's personality or what they had to do. So one of the characters, Jean-Claude Van Sams, was fighting the ninjas of the Neo Shadow Syndicate on top of the roof of Rigatoni Plaza. When it came time for him to jump off the roof, I had Van Halen's Jump play. Then I also had a playlist of like transition music where I could play whenever they were traveling between locations or out of a specific scene. And then finally, I had an ending playlist with my highest octane music. Think Separate Ways by Journey or Holding Out for a Hero by Bonnie Tyler. Now this worked perfectly, and after saving the city of LA at the end of the session, the awesome action heroes found themselves standing in the penthouse of Rigatoni Plaza as starships We Built This City played out and the credits rolled. Thoughts and review. Overall, I had a blast running Never Stop Blowing Up. I think it would be quite a difficult system for a brand new GM to run because of just how bare bones the rules are. They rely on you having a lot of contextual knowledge about certain conventions in RPGs, but that's not necessarily a problem. You know, this system is based on an actual play and was only released in PDF because of fan pressure. It's not like a typical RPG release production, but it is something to be aware of. You are going to have to do a fair amount of work as the GM to both interpret these rules and to set up the session. So just let go of some of that control and acknowledge that it's going to be balls to the walls. You know, it was so much fun to just go to this balls to the walls, all out action, and to feed into whatever crazy schemes the players cooked up. And as long as you embrace that, you're probably going to have a good time. Now, I run a pretty serious D&D campaign because it's intended to run as a long-term game. So taking a break from that to be over the top and silly was just really lovely. It was a lovely change of pace. And it was also really fun to run this specific group of players through a more narrative first system, as pretty much all of them only have experience with D&D and its forks, which are much more mechanical first, even when you play them as heavy RP style campaigns. Overall, I think Never Stop Blowing Up is absolutely worth your time for a one shot. If you're a lover of 80s action movies, I think you would have a total blast playing this system. And it's also made me more excited to check out Kids on Bikes finally too. I've been wanting to check this system out since the very first edition, and we're now well into the second edition. I think we're going to do a sequel to this session where the teen characters from the world go around town solving problems caused by their excursion into the VHS using the Kids on Bikes system. If you've played Never Stop Blowing Up, I'd love to hear about your experiences down below, and if there's a system you'd like me to check out, let me know down there too. If you want to keep watching, check out this video where I talk about how to start playing more games that aren't D&D, but until next time, happy gaming.